Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to crumble!
I'm Joshua Kemble, and welcome to Joshua Kemble's Livestream. I've been a freelance illustrator and graphic designer for over 20 years. I was an art director for 9 years. And when I'm not art directing and working on illustrations and graphic designs, I'm working on comic books and graphic novels, and that's usually what I do during my streams. And while conversations can go all over the place on this stream, from spicy and entertaining to goofy and silly, one thing stays consistent throughout every stream. I'll always be working on art. So pull up a chair, get your art supplies out, and get ready for an entertaining show that'll keep you company while you work on your own personal art projects. This is Joshua Kemble's Art Stream. All right, you guys, welcome to my live stream. I have a adorable pup sleeping on my lap. This is Georgie. He's a new pup that we got recently, like a month ago or something. He's really sweet. Anyhow, I'm going to be working on comics all summer, like a lunatic. Saturday was the first day of summer. I used that to just kind of like decompress and sleep a bunch, and then basically Sunday it was like chores and kind of dealing with like stuff around the house, and then Monday I was ready to hit the ground running, working on comics, and our dryer stopped working. So I looked at like YouTube videos and like disassembled the entire dryer and ordered all the parts needed to kind of rebuild our dryer. So we'll see how that goes, but not art. So I'm excited to actually start working on the thing that I really took the summer off to do, which is The Rest of Not Death But Love, The Strange Supernatural Story of Elizabeth Barrett Browning. I'm working on page 142 of it, and I'm pretty excited about it. It's coming along pretty well. I have the rough for page 141 right here printed out just so that I can kind of keep it in context as I'm working on roughs for the next sequence. I have about one rough left to do before I can start doing chunks of pages. So I have pages to kind of do. And I have a warm, adorable little puppy dog sleeping on my lap named Georgie, who's amazing. So let's get into it. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to my... Oh, there's a goal, too, in the chats. So if you're watching this and you want to help me get to that goal, it's like $5, I think, as a tip. And if you use that... I was trying to think of incentives. You guys can think of incentives, too, for getting people to kind of super chat. But my thought was, like, I'll just answer whatever question and prioritize it. Depending on if it obviously it has to hit terms of service. That's basically it. Follow the terms of service of YouTube. But yeah, so that's the goal. That's set up. I'm gonna be a little rusty at the live streaming. Probably it's been a while. But I'm planning on doing this all the time, like pretty much all day. I know we have Artcasters tonight where Scott Circlin's going to be doing a wrap-up of the Arizona Comics Festival. And I'm just going to kind of work on comics and kind of chat with you guys. There's a lot going on in California right now that might be worth talking about as well. So we'll see how that kind of goes. Okay, so let's go to all of that being said. Let's just get into it and start working on comics. Here's the fun thing. This is the view where you're going to see basically me working on this crappy little old Wacom tablet that clearly needs to be wiped off and cleaned. But it can also be puppy view occasionally. See this little dog? He's the cutest dog. He just wanted to be on my lap while I was working, so Hopefully it's doable. I'm now starting to relate to people who have cats and have to work on art with cats because this dog wants to be on a lap while we're working. So it'll be the dog slash Wacom cam. And then right below is the section of the script that I'm working on, which is covered mostly by my ridiculously large logo. And then we're just basically going to rough out this page. The last page I did is right here again. So we're at a point in the story. Let's go through the last page just to familiarize yourselves. So, and if I have sniffles and stuff, it's because I get horrible allergies all throughout the summer. It's like when everything's blooming and we're in the Antelope Valley, so it's like just dead dead plants and stuff all over the place. All right. Mr. Eckley told me something interesting about your friend. He said his wife did not claim to possess any gifts as a medium until recently. And then this is Elizabeth to Robert saying, Sophie is modest. She wouldn't wish to flaunt such a thing even to her husband. And then Robert kind of responds to her saying, I dare say Mrs. Eckley is not as shy and innocent as you think. And then Elizabeth responds, Thomas said, better be careful, Josh. The puppy may replace you as a host, LOL. Honestly, he should. He's really cute. He's a real sweet pup. He's a sweet pup. He's kind of sleeping, though. I don't want to disturb him too much, but he is a really... Look at this dog. How can you not love this little guy? He's amazing. Anyhow, Sophie... Okay, Elizabeth responds to Robert saying, talk of spirits has been taboo in our house because we can't agree upon the subject. But where Sophie is concerned, you seem only too happy to keep mentioning it. And then Robert responds with, if I have led you to believe you cannot speak honestly to me, then I am sorry. And that's kind of where we're at. So they're having this conversation. Robert's been trying to get Elizabeth to eat. She's very slowly kind of eating a grape, like a single grape. That's so far what's happened here. And that kind of catches us up to speed with what I have to rough out now. So when I'm roughing comics, generally I'm going to kind of do a couple things. I'm going to do a list, I'm going to do a thumbnail, and then from the thumbnail I'm going to do a rough. So a thumbnail is like a really loose drawing. I know my computer's been just very laggy lately, so hopefully I don't get a lot of lags and stuff like that when it comes to, the stream and all that kind of stuff. Okay. What else? Okay, so for those of you who don't know, I don't live in LA proper. I live in a district at the edge of LA County. So we're in the county, but we're not in Los Angeles proper. But things have been going down. The thing is, I have a lot of friends who live in Los Angeles. And every friend I know who lives in Los Angeles, everything's pretty peaceful and chill. And calm and quiet, and then there's a couple protesters in like specific sections of the city that aren't like one of them's even like an unincorporated part of LA, and they're not like these wild crazy riots. Like there's been graffiti kind of popping up all over the city, but that's basically from the friends I know. But if you would think from like what the news is projecting that there's just explosions everywhere and Los Angeles is like a war zone. I've read that a bunch. If you go on Twitter, you'd think it's like a giant takeover of all of Los Angeles, but like it's just wild how exaggerated the whole thing has gotten. But it's being used as a pretext to militarize the response from the federal government to a state that didn't want military there. and also take over the National Guard. So it's a really weird time where I feel like California is kind of being used as an experiment on our democracy and the extent of executive power, and that's a little scary. So that's kind of going on in the background as we're speaking. It's scary times, but not scary because like, oh, there's a war going on in Los Angeles. It's scary to me how much control and suppression of the media has really succeeded to where the White House like says a line about Los Angeles is a war zone, and that line is parroted from newspaper to newspaper to newspaper all over Twitter. They take like one photo of like a disgruntled person that honestly, if you guys are familiar with LA, I mean, when the Lakers win, they light a car on fire. It's just like part of Los Angeles. It's kind of crazy. So it's not really, what's happening isn't that different than like just a typical kind of Los Angeles thing. Like this isn't like the LA riots kind of thing. That isn't to excuse like the 0.0000001% of the hundreds of thousands of people in Los Angeles that are conducting themselves in a bad way during the protests. But it's like this isn't even close to like a lot of people are really interested in this being like to the level of the BLM riots or something, and it's not. But what's interesting and scary to me is the ability for one guy to kind of say an outlandish statement that's untrue, like it's factually provably untrue. Like I could drive to downtown LA today and be perfectly safe from the protesters, and maybe I'd hit some traffic, But like I said, that's, I have friends who've like gone out, walked around the city. They were looking for chaos, like to see if there was any chaos, and there was like nothing. There were like, a couple of people doing demonstrations, a couple of people, maybe doing like a little bonfire on the street with like not lighting cars on fire or anything, but just like, creating a little fire to like camp around over the night. I don't know. My point is, it's not crazy, and the people who want you to believe it's crazy are people who want to justify basically militarizing the federal government to come and completely test the limits of federal power over states, and also see if they can create a chilling effect for any dissenters. And so it's a scary time to be in. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about comics. So let's get into it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my script here. We're going to break it down. I'm going to fight my my allergies here. And we're going to break it down. So in my opinion, when you do comics, we had a comic project where I teach, and a couple other teachers were kind of in on the project and had their classes do it. And some of these people aren't cartoonists, and so they were surprised by the amount of pre-planning that's required when you do a comic. Comics are all about pre-planning, setup, like really meticulous mapping before you get to the art. And so I think you almost want to think of a comic like you're storyboarding your own film, and then you have to make the film. Like you're kind of creating this whole world. And so when you get to making comics, it can be pretty overwhelming. I always recommend at the beginning, whether you're working from your own script or from somebody else's script, to break down your script into panels. Just roughly. You can change it as you go. What's going on, Georgie? I want to get more comfortable. George is wondering what is going on. Okay. I'm going to have to use that arm for I'm going to have to use that arm a little bit for... Yeah, you want to get a little more cozy? Okay. I will have to use that arm, though, that you're resting on to do shortcuts, my dude. All right. So that's what we're going to do here is in text. I'm going to break down the script, and then we're just going to kind of work through it. Okay. So script page has, we're just going to go ahead and put B. I'm going to put 1. I'm going to make a list, basically, of what I'm thinking panels will be from the script. And then I'll, from there, make a thumbnail. After I've boiled down to the list to all the essentials. So I want to see what can I break this down into, and then what's the easiest way to kind of take those things that I broke it down into and break them down even more. Do you still want up here, bud, or are you wanting down? We can kind of work however you want, dude. You okay? He's a little lonely because everybody else in the house is taking naps, and I think he just wants some love here. I'm gonna turn this so you guys can see Georgie Cam. All right, so let's do this. So it's gonna say Elizabeth is responding to Robert saying, "Allow me my hope. I'm convinced the veil between life and death is thin." So, and then Robert says, "I imagine the veil would seem quite thin thanks to great quantities of laudanum and Sophie's seances." Boom, dig. And then it says, so Elizabeth fixes him with a scolding look. Okay. Georgie, that's not going to work, my dude. I got to use shortcut fingers. He's like... He's just taking over my arm like a cute little guy. Thomas said, "I have an art question. You think taking an in-person drawing class is worth it? I can draw a little, but always mess up my proportions. I was thinking maybe having instant real feedback might help." Yes. I mean, obviously, I'm an educator, so I strongly believe in the value of a one-on-one art teacher. You know, I would say junior colleges in the country are really affordable. I would recommend just take like some drawing classes in junior college. If you want to get better at proportion, then take a life drawing class. Life drawing's huge for that. I know here in the Valley, too, they have like this thing called the MOA Cedar Center, where they have free life drawing sessions every first and third Sunday of the month, or first and last Sunday of the month. And you can just go and just do like life drawings and stuff and study drawing. So I think having... even if it's not an instructor, a more seasoned artist, like kind of near you, who when you hit those frustration points, which all artists do, you're able to understand why you're getting frustrated and what's off about the thing you feel weird about that you're drawing. Generally, I see that all the time when I'm teaching students, where they innately have a good drawing ability and stuff, but they just haven't learned how to see yet how their work is an error. I don't know if that makes sense. Okay, Georgie, I gotta move my arm from under you. I know that was a cozy spot for you, but I'm gonna just move, and then you can rest on my tummy. But a lot of art is learning how to see, and a lot of what you're learning how to see is what you did wrong, so you can course correct. It's almost like learning any skill. Yeah, Thomas was saying, I've tried books and videos, but something still feels missing. I would say that's a big thing. Taking a in-person life drawing class is a huge thing, because you'll have your instructor be able to like literally stop you where you're at and draw over your drawing, and show you specifically where you were wrong on your proportions, or what's awkward about it. Okay, let's get this. So this is going to be Robert and Elizabeth. I'll just put R and E. You know, I'm almost thinking... you know what? There's such a difference in mood here. I think I'm going to have the first one just be Elizabeth's. I'm going to just have the first panel be Elizabeth's text. And mid shot EBB. And then for number 2, I'll have this be Robert's text. EBB background? Possibly, I don't know. Elizabeth's scolding look. Okay, so 3. EBB. I'm going to do side shot. To Robert. Text. Okay, this says Robert softens and takes her hands in his. So I'm going to do 4, same shot, Robert takes EBB's hands. And I might even be a little rusty at this thumbnail thing. It's been a couple days since I've drawn. Okay, we'll have this be Robert text. 5 is going to be 5 will be a close-up of Elizabeth. So Robert's basically saying, I know, Ba. So Elizabeth says, perhaps I encourage Sophie too much, but I'm comforted by glimpses of what is on the other side. Robert softens and takes her hands in his. I know, Ba, I know. And then Elizabeth says, I miss Casa Guidi. That's their kind of cool McMansion thing in Italy. I don't know what that's called. It's like a chateau or something. Okay, so Elizabeth text. And then 6 will be close up of Robert. And then Robert text. And Robert's text here is going to be if heat is any indication, summer has arrived, it's time to go home. Cool. So I'm going to just call this layer text. I want to take a look at the previous page too to see if that's giving me an indication of location. But yeah, in regards to what you were saying, Thomas, I do think that one-on-one, yeah, this is going to be very helpful. So here's our location. So we have this this room with this kind of here. I'll hold it up here. There's a room. It's got like an interesting floor. So this will be helpful too. So I'll keep this on hand as well for reference of just where our environment is. So at the end of the day, having an in-person coach is like when it comes to art, it's kind of similar to like if you're trying to learn how to pitch. You could watch all the tutorials in the world, but having a coach who can say, hey, like when you tilted your arm in this specific direction, that's what threw the ball off. Next time, try kind of holding your hand in this way as you do your swing through or whatever and release a little earlier. That's the advantage of having like one-on-one time with art. I think with art, the kind of master apprentice model is probably the ideal way. Unfortunately, there's no way to do that in modern education where you just have a one-on-one with like an apprentice and a key artist. But I do think like studying directly under somebody in person who can course correct you immediately is really helpful and useful. And there's science behind this too, because like I know that during COVID, when a lot of people were kind of shut down and stuff, they did a lot of education online, and they saw a massive dip in results. Like people were not improving or even maintaining their education standards because there's just something about in-person learning and that kind of mentorship you get that makes a big difference in knowledge gleaned and learning. All right. You gonna go down now? You can go down. There you go. Well, Georgie took off to go to his own little spot. All right. The main outdoors, it says, hey Josh, Tim here. Are you in California right now? Or are you close to LA? What's your thought on all this stuff? Boy, is this country effed up. Yeah, I kind of talked about it. Let's start thumbnailing this real quick while I talk about it. Man, my allergies are going nuts. So this is going to be a mid shot of EBB. Hold on. And they're kind of in this room. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to have like her saying, the fun part about this is this is the thumbnail stage, so I can be pretty quick with it. She's going to be kind of turned to Robert. Tim was saying, sorry, I didn't want to distract you. No, you're not distracting me at all. In fact, that's why I live stream. I will talk about it in 2 seconds. I just have to think for like a minute just to kind of get this set up. Weirdly, in the thumbnail stage, that's usually the part where you really have to focus. And again, I can talk and answer questions and stuff, but there's going to be a momentary sections where I just got to like think specifically about what I am doing. Actually, I kind of like this. Okay, and then she'll have her kind of hair here. She's going to be saying, allow me my... She's kind of leaning back on a... Okay. What's her costume here? Okay. And I'll be a lot quicker at this as I continue to do these. It's just been a while, so I have to kind of reintroduce my brain to the world that we're living in, because it's been months since I've touched these pages. The last semester of school was just insane because I was taking classes full time, and we hit finals. And then I had to prep for finals and stuff at the school I'm teaching at. So it was like just a double header of that. And then I had a bunch of freelance. So 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 Tim was asking like about LA. What are my thoughts on it? Well, I said this kind of from at the top. The perception that Los Angeles is like a war torn like area is insanity. Like the protests. Like, I have so many friends who live downtown, and the protests were, like, nothing to write home about. Like, it wasn't the protest that I think the administration wanted it to be, to use as a pretext for, basically overriding state power. And so what's shocking is the narrative difference between the narrative you're going to see from people who live in California and are right next to the protests. Like, I'm not super close to it. I'm in LA County, not LA proper. But by no means were these like out of control riots. Like, it's like before Trump sent the National Guard in, it's like a typical like what you'd see in Los Angeles when the Lakers win, like it wasn't a big deal. And it was handled pretty well, by the LAPD, although I would say maybe not so well, cause like, they instigated a lot of the violence, that the mild violence that did proceed by basically shooting gas canisters and rubber bullets at protesters who were just protesting and weren't rioting. But this weird thing happens when you start getting hit by rubber bullets and gas can and tear gas canisters that are being aimed directly at people's heads and stuff. When you see that start happening, you get kind of pissed off, and it starts creating an atmosphere that's more prone to riot. But anyhow, that being said, I don't think the LAPD really lost control of the situation. They kind of were doing okay. And then but before any violence had really broken out, that's when Trump kind of announced that he was going to send a National Guard to take care of this war zone. And it's pretty transparent. If you live in California, it's like in at least in LA County, it's just real obvious that Trump is trying to make this a thing that it's not. And so you have to ask why. Why is the White House so concerned with projecting the idea that Los Angeles is a war zone to the rest of the world, when I have buddies who live all over Los Angeles, and all of them are like, dude, there's nothing, like, they're walking down the streets, they're shopping, it's just like LA is just pretty much okay. And yeah, I think the most I've heard from people who live in LA was, yeah, there's like some graffiti popped up. Like, people were, tagging F ICE or something. That's pretty much what I've heard from my friends in Los Angeles. So what's strange is, what is the incentive of the White House trying to make and filter through the media and through their little media wings like Fox News and like right-leaning media? You'll see it all over Twitter, just trying to convince people like, dude, California is lost. Like, the whole place is on fire. Like, it's just like, and they'll even show like a photograph of like people huddled around a fire who were there late at night, and it's like a fire that's not even burning things. Don't get me wrong, some cars were burned. But like I said, it's not much different than what happens after a Laker game in Los Angeles. And the cars that they burned are like those Waymo cars or whatever. And that was after being hit by tear gas canisters and rubber bullets before any violence. Anyhow, point being, what is the incentive to make it make people perceive LA, get the talking point that LA is a war zone? The point of it is to try to make it a war zone, and so here's the thing that I perceive, and, this is just my opinion and stuff, but I think that the Trump administration is constantly testing the limits of what they can get away with, on the executive in the executive branch before like the Supreme Court or the which is pretty much bought out now. Like to see like, hey, are the checks and balances going to stop me here? Are they going to stop me here? And this is just the next test. So it's a distraction from a failed economic policy, and it's a distraction from a lot of things. But not only is it a distraction, it's a premeditated test of our democracy to see how much further we can creep into authoritarian rule. And so, you know, the idea that a president, without the request of the governor of the state, is just going to send in the National Guard, like, this is unheard of. Like, the last time that, just to give you, because a lot of people on the right are responding with, like, well, I mean, Bush requested the National Guard to go to California. But you got to keep in mind, during the LA riots. Well, for one thing, the LA riots were, like, legit out of control riots. like crazy riots. I lived through those. I remember them. My brother was in the LAPD at the time. And he would call us from LA with, like, his voice just wouldn't even work because just the smoke and it wasn't smoke from, like, gas canister. It was just, like, so much of the city was on fire at the time. And that was a request from the California governor to Bush at the time to send in the National Guard because they had lost control. The last time in our country we ever, and I think the only time we ever had the National Guard called in to go into a state without the governor's approval was during integration. So basically, Little Rock, Arkansas, the Arkansas governor, I had to teach about this, but the governor was like a racist jerk and basically deployed the National Guard to try to prevent African American students from integrating into Little Rock. Even though the federal government basically said, like, hey, you are going to desegregate schools. Like, schools are no longer segregated. This list of students can go into the school and have to. So the school complied. The school's like, okay, we're going to have integration now. But the governor was like, not on my watch. So he sent the National Guard to, like, stop these students. And there were riots, like a bunch of racists, like, showed up and started, like, beating up anybody who tried to get into the school who wasn't white. And then at that point, the president called the National Guard and sent them in, like, he overrode the governor, and basically caused them to, like, try to break it up. That caused a gigantic riot, but it was literally, like, the intention of the president wasn't to go in there to beat down citizens. It was to protect the students who were trying to go into the school. Finally, he sent the 51st Airborne, who personally escorted those students into Little Rock to basically get the federal law followed. So it's the juxtaposition of Trump's pretext versus trying to protect, like, a small group of African American kids from getting beaten to death by a crowd, so that they could follow the law and go to the school, versus I'm going to go crack heads in California of people who are pissed off because we were taking children from their schools. Like, because I don't know if you've heard about, like, the ICE raids and stuff, but, like, they just came in force, and, like, there's, like, video footage of them, like, taking, like, 8-year-old kids, like, out of their classroom and just, like, piling on them and, like, fighting parents, breaking up families and stuff. And they did this in a sweeping effort, in a way that ICE has never, like, we have ICE raids all the time, but this was coordinated to be really, like, public and loud, which is unusual for ICE, because usually ICE is much more covert. This was meant to send a message to the community, and the community didn't like it. in California when ICE came in, and it's like you've got your neighbor over across the street, and then they come in and like start cracking heads and taking your neighbors and kids, and you see kids dragged away in vans and stuff. Of course, you're going to protest. So that's what led to the protest, and then now Trump is using his ICE raids that were poorly planned and were intended to cause friction as a pretext to subvert the governor and test whether he'll be held to following the Constitution. Because constitutionally, unless it's an actual insurrection or a rebellion, the president has no right to override the governor and take our National Guard and or send like Marines in. So, see, now I got distracted answering your question. So it's a tenuous situation because here's the thing: he's now sending Marines, U.S. Marines, U.S. troops on our own soil, which is bizarre because that has like. I can't even think of a time that's happened prior to the Little Rock 9. And in that case, that was like troops sent to protect the people. And in this case, it's troops sent to protect the government from the people, which is just a lot different pretext, and it shows you kind of where his mindset's at. It's a test to just basically see if he can send... if is the system gonna be able to stop him from basically pointing the military wherever he wants in the country at anyone who dissents or anyone who disagrees with him? Is the system strong enough to stop him from doing that? Or can he just override his obligations to the Constitution as he has been doing, and no one's going to challenge it? So that's the part that is scary, because if he's able to get away with this on a small scale, how is he going to stop? How is anyone in the future going to stop him from being like, I don't like what that reporter said, I'm sending the Marines after him? It's a scary time, man. And ICE too. One of the things that led to some violence at the protests was there's a very well-known union leader in Los Angeles named Huerta, blanking on his first name. But Thomas was saying Marines stopped a rebellion in Alcatraz and a few other times. Yes, but the key difference here is not U.S. troops. It's the governor in that case requested that. Does that make sense? Like, the big difference here is the governor has said LAPD has it under control. LAPD itself has said we have this under control. There's not a war zone. We're good. Everybody in California has been like, we're good. We got this. And Trump's like, nope, we're sending the National Guard. And, oh, by the way, we're also going to send the Marines. And that's the unusual part. So that's the part that's a big constitutional test. Because if he can override the state with such federal force, if the federal can override the states, because especially for Jake, like, Jake's not in America, so it's like, but one of the big strengths of our system is that the states and the federal government each have direct jurisdictions that are a little different. And technically, I mean, this has always been tested, just never more so than now. The ability for states to have their own sovereignty within the United States, without the federal government, like, actually fully being able to just kind of employ, like, for instance, a federal military force that's meant for enemies of the state. Like, the whole purpose of the military is not for civil unrest. It's for enemy countries. It was not designed, like, the military was not designed to go into states and just break heads. Like that's what the police are for. That's what the National Guard is for. To override that and send in the military when there was no request from the states is a huge overreach of federal over state rights. And I'm surprised at the amount of like right-leaning people who are usually for states' rights that have just been cheering this on. And I'm like, you guys, it just becomes really transparent. Where it's like, okay, you guys weren't about states' rights. You were just about racism. Because states' rights, when it means you can be racist, but when it comes to an actual test of the sovereignty of a state, can a president just send the Marines in a city where the governor, the mayor, every single person, the whole police force, the third largest police force in the whole U.S., is like, dude, we got this handled. And to override that and just be like, no, you don't, and I'm going to send a bunch of my goons into your country who are all sworn to protect the Constitution, so that's a whole crisis too. Are they supposed to obey the commander-in-chief or the Constitution? And that's what he's testing. He's testing whether they're going to have loyalty to him over the Constitution, whether his constituents will have loyalty to him over the Constitution. He's been doing this gradually for the last year. And unfortunately, all of his constituents and supporters have been more than willing over and over again to just be like, really? I mean, who cares about the Constitution? And a lot of these people are people who have like tattoos of the Constitution on their arm, but have probably never read the document that they like this. Anyhow, America's in a mess, guys. We're in a really weird mess right now. Jake said, imagine this being a tipping point into a Cali annexation. Yeah, I mean, I could see that. Like, he's looking for pretext. He's testing the limits of... But you got to understand, like, what's not being talked about in the news is all over the United States, because of what happened in LA, there are protests against ICE happening in Austin, Texas, in Chicago, in, like, every major city of the United States right now. And he is testing whether in the future, if he wants at his own discretion to send the military, which is a force that's supposed to be for protecting the country, all the states from the outside, he's testing whether he can direct that inside. And if he can direct that inside against the will of the states, he has complete control over this country. This all started with, like, before he was reelected. Let me get back to work here. It's really fascinating and horrifying, or terrifying, not horrifying. But the thing that's unique about this whole situation is the Supreme Court made a ruling before Trump was elected. And it was basically overruling the part of the Constitution where you can actually charge the president with a crime. This is like the most powerful thing in the Constitution. They just overrode it. They were like, you know what? Actually, that amendment about getting rid of the president and charging them with crimes, you can't charge the president. They can't commit a crime when in office. So the Supreme Court, which is, just got tipped like heavily right, ruled in favor of the Trump administration, basically not being able to be charged with a crime. So now Trump can try anything in office and just be like, I was doing it as my role as the executive. And there's, like, even if he gets stopped, there will be no accountability that legally can happen. Like, and that's been the scenario from day one of him being in office. Once the Supreme Court made that ruling, it basically made the president a king. And people thought, the left was being really hyperbolic about this, but on paper, the president can do anything he wants, and as long as he claims it was part of his duty as the executive, or his role as the executive, you cannot charge him with a crime. So that means the president, the executive power, even if Trump left office and you had a lefty in office, right? What the Supreme Court just did before Trump was even in was basically allow the executive to use the White House as a plaything to see how far they can walk all over the Constitution and have it be tolerated, because guess what? There's no repercussions. Like, let's say they get stopped and they're like, hey, you violated the Constitution, which is the oath you took of office. We're going to stop you. He can be like, okay, my bad. And like when he leaves office, just live a good life. Like, it doesn't matter anymore if they break the Constitution. So now he's like incentivized to break the Constitution, to see how much of it he can break before the country breaks. It's a really it's a really dangerous time. The Maine Outdoors said Portland, Maine had a protest about it this weekend. Yeah, it's going to happen all over. But the thing that you're going to read, Thomas was saying, even the reports from the networks that hate Trump make it look like a war zone. Yeah, they're heavily editing it. The disturbing part is I've seen like news outlets like release pictures from like the BLM protests, like footage from that, and be like, look at downtown LA, it's crazy. And it's like, dude, that protest from like 8 years ago, that's not footage from LA today. I'm just saying, it's a really strange time. Okay, we got to finish this thumbnail. Okay, so Robert, sorry for rambling about it. It's fascinating though. As somebody, like, I had to teach civics and stuff, and it's the test that's happening to our democracy is just, yeah. Thomas was saying it's set up. The Marines are the president's own, so they technically have different rules. But that's the thing. They don't. They like the whole. He is the commander-in-chief of the military, but the military does not swear an oath to the commander-in-chief. They swear an oath to the Constitution. So if this is a big test, if they follow him over the Constitution, we're done. Like, yeah, it's a tenuous time, man. I'm only slightly thankful that the guy's a buffoon, so I keep hoping he'll just he'll screw it up, you know. Okay. I imagine the veil would seem quite thin. Okay, this is her talking, and I just need to show that Robert's here. And I also need to kind of pay attention. But I do appreciate the company while I work. Because, like, one of the reasons I live stream is for my autistic little self, having other people to hang out with when I work helps me stay focused and on task. By the way, I will tell you guys this, man. Yesterday, trying to fix a dryer. I am not a handyman, okay? But luckily we have YouTube, right? And so I look at these YouTube tutorials about taking apart the dryer and taking all these components out of it. And I'm like going back and forth to Home Depot. Eventually I had to order specific parts because I found out that it wasn't just the dryer belt. It was like, I've learned all these different terms and now I'm forgetting them. But it was like the row. Oh my gosh. It's like there's a thing at the end of the motor that the belt of the dryer that goes around the bin of the dryer attaches to, and I think it's called a pulley. And what had happened was not only did the belt need to be replaced, but the pulley itself had broken off a part of the component, and so the part that the rope or the belt wraps around on the pulley pops off. Tim said, I saw that, Josh, on Facebook. Did you fix it? No, the parts still haven't shown up. So for me, like, again, I'm slightly autistic, and one of the things that I find with my personality is if I get into a project, it's really hard for me to switch focus. And, like, once I'm in something, it's like a strength and a weakness. Like, once I'm into something, I will see it through to completion and get obsessed with it until I'm done. And that can be a real problem when you have a pending graphic novel and I have to wait for parts. Like, with my personality, that was really hard to do. Today, to stop that project because I cannot work on it until those parts arrive, which they'll arrive later tonight. But till those parts arrive, I literally can't work on those, and I do have to be doing comics like every waking minute this whole summer to kind of make sure that that things get done. You know, I forgot to kind of block in where the text is going to go, and I don't know if I'm doing thumbnails at this point or roughs, but it's working. So I want to have this, and then I want to. I don't know why I drew like an ear here, because he has like kind of more of like an Abe Lincoln thing going on. But anyhow, I'm just saying, for my personality, that's a very, I know a lot of you guys are like, ooh, poor kid. But at the same time, it's like, for my personality to put something like that on pause and then have to get back in the zone of cartooning, it's really hard. It's why I have to do... Jake said, I'm going to order Jacob's apartment tomorrow. Nice. Please do. I appreciate that. Also, it's good to see you, Jake. How you been, man? How are things in your part of the world? Our part of the world's not looking so great. How are you guys doing? It's just, I don't know, man. The world is looking chaotic right now. I've been thinking about you, Jake. I haven't heard from you in a while, so I was like, man, I hope you guys are okay with all the chaos you're dealing with, which is, I'd say what I'm dealing with is like a pittance of what I think is going on out there. The world's in a weird place. Okay, allow me my hope, Robert. You know what? I'm just going to write the text here. Allow me my hope, Robert. But anyhow, I'm just saying, for my personality, I have to build routines to accomplish things. And if I build a routine and I'm kind of like military-ish about it, I do really well. Like, I've been working out every other day nonstop. And I'm in better shape than I've been in years. Given that I'm old, so I'm in really good shape for my age, but the only reason that is because I've built this like crazy routine, and if I deviate too much from the routine, it's there's a possibility of the whole thing just imploding and me gaining like 50 pounds and not working out for like a year. So it's like I have to be aware of that. It's the same with comics, where I build this routine, and when I'm not able to kind of maintain it, it becomes really difficult to get anything done. This is supposed to say is thin. So anyhow, needless to say, this step, and this is something I read a long time ago. I can't remember if it was from the War of Art or some other, self-helpy type book. But I think the hardest part of doing anything is just starting. And I was teaching the grid portrait process to my students. I don't know if you guys have heard of that. It's a process developed by this guy, Chuck Close, who's a really rad like photorealist painter, where you grid off a picture that you're trying to draw. Like let's see, I'll do an example here. You grid off, like, let's say I wanted to make an exact replica of this, but I still want that like vibe of like hand drawn, because if it's traced, it's just gonna look real generic. So what you do is you grid off your stuff, like, or let's say you wanted to do like a mural and you want to blow this thing up. So what you do is you create a grid, and as long as it's like squares by squares, and you repeat those squares exact, this is just a real quick approximation. Okay. This is a really bad, quick approximation. So you grid off what you're trying to replicate, right? And then the cool thing is you can draw it like as long as there's an equal amount of squares. So in this case, this is 6 by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this is 6 by 7 grid. So I could do a 6 by 7 grid, and as long as it's squares, and they can be any size, it could be the side of a building, and you just draw what you see in each square. It's a really great way to blow things up, or to like muralists use that all the time, or to accurately replicate a photograph. Anyhow, what I'm saying is I had to teach that, and then I was thinking about it, and like one of the things that's great about that process of teaching a student that is you're showing them that if you carve away at something one little square at a time, and you take a complex thing and you break it down into like little digestible squares, you can create a masterpiece that's like photorealistic, and it's something you never thought you could achieve, and you only achieve it by doing it a little tiny square at a time. Anyhow, I've been thinking about that. Yeah, Jake was saying I'm burnt out and the Russians are having fun testing the Baltics. Yeah. Jake said, spent the last 3 days moving 1,200 books and comics into a new studio space. That's the best argument I've heard for digital. I think I've told you that before. But I'm very much like an old school book person. Big fan of old school books. I fell behind on my... I'm a really big fan of... now I'm blanking out. Anyhow, I'll remember in a second. But there's a cartoonist that you guys... Oh, Daniel Klaus. And I am a huge Daniel Klaus fan, but I haven't bought his last 2 books. And I did have them on a list of presents or whatever. So when my birthday happened, somebody bought me the last 2 Daniel Klaus books, and I am a nerd for physical books, so I have those set aside in a special spot for me to like sit down and like really digest these beautiful books. But I will say, having had to move a lot in my life, every time I move, I question. Jake was saying he hasn't bought Patience himself, and so I hadn't gotten Monica or Patience, and so those were both gifted to me, and I'm thankful to have those physical books. But anytime I've had to move, I question, and I have to say that's the most salient argument I've heard about digital books was like, yeah, but you don't have to move them. And I'm like, yeah, that's pretty true. Okay, guys, I'm going to take a break real quick. We've thumbnailed 1 panel. I got to pick up the pace. And we'll continue working on it real quick. How are you guys doing? I know Thomas, Jake, we have Tim here. We got we got an active chat. Very active chat. Let me know how you guys are doing. I'll be right back. We're going to play the video for Frank's adventures at the library, and I will be right back.
Our heroic adventurers fought orcs, monsters, sorcerers, necromancers. Now they find themselves in front of a mystical library. What shall they find? It's all in the roll of the dice. We've come this far. There's great power behind this door. I can feel it. We just have to get past it. This door is no match for my axe. I shall chop it down. You always want to use brute strength. Why don't you try knocking? We'll try it your way. You may enter. The library is open to all those who seek knowledge. Feel free to look through our tomes. Maybe you'll find the answers you seek. I sense great power here, and it's behind those shelves. Indeed, there are powerful items hidden behind these shelves, but you can only get there through the enchanted words. Do you have those words? I believe I do.
Tremble before the Cremble.
There is great power. Look at that glove. Must be so powerful. That is not where I sense this power. I must get closer. I found them. I found these sacred manuscripts. written by Joshua Kemble. Behold, I now possess 2 stories and Jacob's apartment. Please tell us more about 2 stories and Jacob's apartment, and who is Joshua Kemble? Xeric Award-winning cartoonist Joshua Kemble is a freelance artist, graphic designer, and author. 2 Stories is a confessional graphic memoir that grapples with questions of faith, mental illness, depravity, and ultimately redemption in a fallen world. Jacob's Apartment is a coming-of-age graphic novel in the vein of Ghost Road and Fun Home. It weaves together the threads of spiritual faith, identity, purpose, love, and loss to create an engrossing world in which waking and sleeping dreams collide. You have made your choice. The passage is now closed. Wait, can I get that glove? No. Oh. All right, let's go.
All right, we got Thomas saying, I'm technically at work watching people move dirt. You guys, I'll keep the puppy cam here. Guess who's back? It's Georgie. He got lonely and wanted. He's really depressed. He's not depressed, but he's like a little sad that everybody's napping. And he's like, "Hey guys, I want a nap." Anyhow, he's a good pup. All right, let's get back to it. So the second one is going to be Robert. I wrote down on the list. Yeah, okay, good. It says Robert text Elizabeth is in the background. He's going to be saying, I imagine the veil would seem quite thin. There he goes. I imagine the veil would seem quite thin thanks to great quantities of laudanum and Sophie's seances. So this, I want it to be kind of Robert. What kind of chair is he sitting in? Okay, he's sitting in that. Okay, I'm going to actually write the text. I imagine the veil would be quite thin, thanks to Jake said, I'm planning on what to move tomorrow. There's 400 plus manga to shuffle. Yeah, it's I mean the books can be a beast, but here's the thing that's the most important question, Jake. Did you manage to finish your move? Like, you're moved in, now it's just unpacking. Because if you got to that point, congratulations. That's the best part of moving. I feel like the packing and the physically moving in is the worst part, but the slow unpacking, kind of reorganizing a fresh space can be really fun. Quantities. And also, Jake, I hope that it was a move to a place you wanted to move to. That's another thing. Because sometimes, sometimes moving is a beast, but if it's an upgrade or a location you'd rather live, yeah. So hopefully it was both of those. Sophie's seances. Thomas said, never help a book lover or a geologist move. I never thought of a geologist. You're just carrying giant heavy stones and gems. I love the idea of a geologist moving. The book lover comes to mind immediately, but the geologist, That's so good. I just imagine somebody moving like a replica of Stonehenge. And it's like, no, careful up the stairs. And you're like, it's giant geodes. It's just boulders. It's just a Sisyphean task. Like they're just proverbially like rolling a giant boulder up the stairs. Because, of course, when you help on that move, it has to be an upstairs apartment, too. It's not like that wouldn't be a house. They just have to have picked the second floor of an apartment complex. Where's the bouncer gonna stand? The truck bed collapses. You know, maybe that's the thing behind the story of Sisyphus we didn't understand, was that Sisyphus wasn't a myth, he was just a buddy of a geologist trying to help him move. Okay, this is going to be Robert looking kind of annoyed. It's been a while since I've like had to doodle these characters, so I'm refamiliarizing myself with the shorthand for them. That is the funniest thing I've heard, though. Just the idea of a geologist friend. It could be a whole bit, you know, where he's like, "Hey guys, you know, I'll buy you pizza. I'll get you free beer. Just, you know, come over for the weekend and you know, help me, you know, pack." And they're like, "Not this time, Steve. Not this time. Not again." And it like flashes back to like these Sisyphean friends just moving boulders. That was it. That was the whole existentialist meaning, was one must imagine Sisyphus happy moving his friend. What a great guy helping out his need. Oh, that's too good. Thomas, thank you for that. That's one of the funniest visual images. The books I saw, like, it's just, I guess that's that classic thing with comedy, right? Where there's the thing you expect and then the thing you don't expect mixed in. I didn't expect the geologist. All right. Sophie's going to be looking scoldingly. Kind of shocked. These are thumbnails, guys. There we go. I'm going to have her kind of moving her her legs off the couch now. She's been like laying down, but now she's going to be kind of sitting upright a little bit. And then her situation here going to be one of these. This little twisty bop. Okay, there we go. There are some... Okay. Whew. We're getting closer. Jake said, if I ever start a moving company, I'll call it the Sisyphean shipping slogan, we'll shoulder that boulder. Nice. Let's see here. All right. What was our note for 3? 3 is going to be a side shot of Elizabeth. Okay. Let's do this. Let's do this. Okay. Side shot of Elizabeth. So, I'm going to have Elizabeth kind of here. Most of that's going to be covered by hair. It's the tough thing with Elizabeth Barrett Browning is she has these kind of wild locks of hair. Okay, and this is going to be... I want her hand kind of out, almost like an offering. Perhaps... There we go. Let's have that down here. And this is going to be cut a little closer to her. And we'll have it say, perhaps. Perhaps. Yeah, it's definitely weird times, guys. I encourage Sophie too much. It's an interesting time, too, because I feel like truth itself is starting to really erode. Like, just even seeing the reporting and stuff on Los Angeles before there was anything crazy happening, all the media, like, pretty much all media was just blowing it out of proportion, and meanwhile, I have friends who are literally, like, walking around downtown, like, what are they talking about, dude? Like, is there, like, war in Los Angeles? And I have friends who are just, like, walking around downtown, kind of like, well, there's a couple people with, like, signs, and somebody tagged the side of a wall saying F ICE. Meanwhile, it's like, you turn on the news, and it's like, war takes downtown, and it's like, what are you talking about? There's, like, businesses open, they're like, yeah, the protesters, like, bought coffee, like, Meanwhile, like every website on Earth is like the war and down to the Battle of Los Angeles. And then it starts to almost become like a self-fulfilling prophecy where it's like, then things escalate, you know? But it's a weird kind of post-truth society where I'm just surprised by like how kind of post-truth we are. I'm like, wow, is that how it's always worked? Like you almost wonder if like during the French Revolution, was it just originally just like a couple of philosophers just in the, downtown? They're just like, hey, this kind of sucks. This rich poor divide, it kind of sucks. And then like all the news at the time, they're just like, I don't know if it existed. I think at the time they had, the old school like, what was the printing press that was made by the Bible guy? But anyhow, so like the printing presses are just going wild saying like they're cutting off the heads of wealthy people, and people are like downtown like that's actually not happening. There was just a couple guys saying it kind of sucks being poor. And they're like, you won't believe the devastation in France. And eventually Gutenberg, thank you, Jake. It's just like I don't know. It's just funny to me. I just kind of wonder. I wonder if is that how it's always worked? Eventually, after the press publishes it enough, like the people are like, yeah, I guess we could build like a guillotine. I guess. I don't know. Has it always been like that? Because it feels uniquely new, like the kind of disconnection with like what's actually happening. And then what the propaganda is about what's happening. And then that becomes almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. I wonder if has that always been the way? And I'm just getting older and getting more hip to it? I don't know. Anyhow, that's been interesting. All right, we're having our stuff here. Jake, you mean Steve Gutenberg, right? The Goots, not the Gutenberg Press. It was just Steve Gutenberg. He just shows up everywhere, and like riots immediately happen. They're like, 3 Men and a Baby was awesome. Police Academy's great. It's a great movie. Oh my gosh, it's Gutenberg. Sorry, I'm in an absurd point right now where things that probably shouldn't be funny are funny to me, but I get this way. For those of you who've been following my live stream for a while, I get this way when I've been working. It's getting close to lunchtime. Start getting a little delirious. Actually, kind of like this. This will work. Okay. How many panels do we have left? We have 3 panels left to do. Okay. Yeah, Jake was saying, you Americans got it bad living with a media system under a liberal market economy motivated to whip up frenzies than do actual reporting. Yeah, I think there is. And I mean, I do know, like, yellow journalism's existed for a long time. If you look into, the history of cartooning and what's called yellow journalism are, like, hand in hand. Like, because you know, you have Winsor McKay doing these beautiful, beautiful comics, Little Nemo and Slumberland, published by William Randolph Hearst, who is like the king of whipping up frenzies and controversies in newspapers to sell more papers. Where it's like, this may not be true, but let's run it. I love the idea of Steve Gutenberg actually being the Gutenberg that caused revolutions. We got some gold here. We got some gold material here to work with. Okay. We got Elizabeth saying, perhaps I encourage blah, blah, blah. Okay. Now Robert's going to take her hand in his. So this needs to be that side shot again. Do. He needs to be kind of reaching over. This will be the chair. The chair, the comfy chair. Alright, so we have some of this happening. We're going to have Elizabeth kind of here. And she's on her... We have this, like... I can't forget that there's a table here. With, like, foods and stuff. Table. It's got some stuff. And then we do have our it's like the sloppiest. But you know what? It gets the point across. Okay. I know ba. I know. And then she's going to be saying, I miss Casa Guide. I miss Casa Guide. And then there are these guys. There's like little thingamabops here. And then there is a little bit of a, like a wood paneled roof. Excuse me. All right, and we got. All right. There's a flora that has kind of a interesting pattern to it. Okay. Ba, not ga. I know ga. I know. Gaw. That's what he was saying. I know gaw. All right. Here we go. We're going to kind of move this up. And then this last one is going to be Robert speaking. And I think I was going to have it be a close-up. Yep, close-up of Robert. So here's the fun part. Let's do... Should I keep Robert on the left? Or on the right? Okay, I'm going to have it say if this heat is any indication summer has arrived. It is time to go home. Let's have that be kind of here, and then we'll have this be Robert's. There we go. And I think we're going to have... this be shoulders here. This will be a hand. Okay, fine. Okay, that is going to do it for this thumbnail, except for the last bit. Jake said, got into Frank Lloyd Wright architecture lately. What a mastery. Dude, Frank Lloyd Wright, if you're ever in Chicago, they have an amazing Frank Lloyd Wright tour. And then here's a little fact about Frank Lloyd Wright that's a little strange. My dad was a graphic designer back in the paste up days. But before he was a graphic designer, he was actually an architect practicing in Chicago. And when he was going to school for architecture, he went to the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, back when it was in the basement of the museum. And they had a guest lecturer who was a local architect in Chicago, which was Frank Lloyd Wright. So my dad had a class where Frank Lloyd Wright came in with a cape. Because Frank Lloyd Wright, at least later in life, wore a cape. I don't know if you knew this. And he gave a passionate lecture about architecture. And my dad got to see that. Pretty cool. Some creme brulee for you all. Yeah, because my dad has had a lot of roots in Chicago, Indiana and Chicago. He was a kind of strangely amazing dude. All right, let's find our borders. Okay. These are borders that are preset borders that I've been using for the roughs. And they aren't really like super preset. They just happen to have like the rough idea of what the rest of the thing is. So that's what we're going to do here. That's what we're going to do. Okay. Now where's my thumbnails? Okay, this is how it works. Right now I'm going to kind of put magenta or something over this. That wasn't too bad. I was a little slower than I could be because it's been a while. I'm a little rusty. But I don't think that was too bad for getting roughs done. I've had times where it's taken much longer to get a rough page done. You know what my incentive is right now? I am motivated to get this rough done because I want to eat lunch. For those of you who might be struggling to find time or motivation to do comics, have a little reward systems. That helps me a lot. That helps me with working out too, where it's like, if I get through this many sets, then I can take a break and have some water. Just little things like that, where you're like, man, I'm thirsty, you know? Just going, you know what? You aren't allowed to have water until you get through, 2 more sets. Once you get through 2 sets of your routine, then you can have water. You have to be like a strange authoritarian to yourself. Jake said, reward systems never work. I much prefer consequence. Marsh makes comics. All right, we got Marsh in the chats. How's it going, Marsh? All right, we're just doing a rough for page 142 of this book. I know that tonight we're going to have Artcasters. I believe it's going to be a wrap-up of the convention. I'm guessing, I'm not sure, but I'm going to take a wild guess that some of the Making Comics guys might be joining us. That's my guess, since they were at the con with Scott Circland. So that's going to happen on Scott's channel. And then guess what? Then I'm probably going to be live streaming before then, because I have to work on this comic for the entirety of the summer. That is my job right now. So I'm going to be doing a lot of live streams. All right, so what do we got here? If you guys haven't yet, and you enjoy these live streams, and you want to encourage me to keep doing them, consider sending a super chat. Consider, if you can't, you're like, hey, I got no money. I'm a cartoonist, which makes sense. Hey, I have no money. I'm a cartoonist as well. If you've got no money, you do have hands, hopefully. There's probably a listener out there who's like, I have no hands, sir. How dare you? But for the rest of you, if you have hands, click the like button. Hit subscribe if you haven't. Hit the bell so you get notifications when I'm about to go live. Marsh says, is this a Victorian comic or a different project? Yes, this is Not Death But Love, the strange supernatural story of Elizabeth Barrett Browning. I am going to be busting through about 100 more pages over the summer. And that is my primary job over this summer, because I wrapped I wrapped teaching. I wrapped studenting, and I wrapped all my freelance work. So in theory, the only thing I really need to do this summer is this and maybe a little bit of freelance work. So that means a lot of live streaming. My wife appeared to make the coolest dad pun of all time. Well, it wasn't even a pun. It was a dad joke, though. She came by and said, "You are quite the rapper." That's right. Jake said, "I'll do what Wallywood wouldn't." Okay. Erase. All right. We're getting some of this going. I'm going to do a little bit of shading here. And we're going to call it a day for this stream. So make sure you're subscribed, make sure you've hit the bell, make sure you comment, let me know what you think. Let me know what you think about all the craziness going on in Los Angeles right now. Let me know how things are going for you guys. I will be back. I'm just going to do this shading real quick, and just to let you guys know, I will be back streaming later today. I most likely will be streaming up until Artcasters, and then possibly streaming into the night. The thing that I've basically told myself today is I'm going to be working on comics nonstop until those components for our dryer arrive. And then I will attempt to fix our dryer. I think I can. Mark said, "I'm thinking about trying my hand at some bio comics. Any advice?" My advice is going to be a little weird. I don't know if everybody would give you this. I think that to properly do auto bio, no matter what you're doing, I think you need to be cautious not to over glorify yourself. I when I was working on 2 stories and the sequel, which I'm going to finish after this book, Not Death But Love, is done and off to the publisher, I will continue to do 2 stories book 2 on top of school and stuff, because that's the next thing that has to get done. But I made a deal with myself when I was doing it that, because I had noticed this, I was a big fan of autobio comics, and the ones I loved the most usually didn't make the main character seem like a good person. Like, my favorite autobio was like when the person was really honest about their flaws. And so anyhow, I made a deal, and I would give this advice to anybody delving into autobio. When you're writing and it gets so uncomfortable, like, it should be uncomfortable. And if it's not uncomfortable, you're basically probably lying. Does that make sense? Like, you want to write to the point where you get real uncomfortable with what you're sharing. Like, to do autobio properly, it should not be about the great you. Does that make sense? It should be about the crumbled, destroyed, worst version of yourself. I think if anything, if you exaggerate anything, you should exaggerate your faults and do not exaggerate your strengths. If you're going to lie backward. Like, point being, if you're going to exaggerate or lie or use hyperbole or anything like that, use it against yourself. And I think that'll get you in a spot where you end up telling some truth. Because I think you got to be, at least I think, if you're going to write autobio, just be aware of human nature. And our nature as humans is to make ourselves the main character of a story. And when we make ourselves the main character of a story, we justify anything we did. And so I think that's the key, is like, be so honest that you're uncomfortable about especially your flaws. Don't make yourself the hero. I hope that makes sense. And inevitably, I think by doing that, you'll end up with a strong work. But yeah, Jake asks good questions, saying, what perspective do you want to write it from? That sets the mood and tone. Yeah, is it going to be first person? Because that main advice I was giving there is if you're working in first person. But I would say try to stay away from patting yourself on the back. You know? Like, I think the better... I don't know. To me, I think the strength of a good autobio is it's like a diary. You're getting a sneak peek into somebody's diary. And so I feel like, think about a story you want to tell, and then immediately when you're thinking about it, think, what are the things I'd want to edit out of this story just to make myself look better? And then don't edit those out, like, exaggerate them, and that should be your focus. Focus on the things you'd want to edit out. But I'm a weirdo. I don't know. You know, that's the advice I would give, is just be as truthful as possible. When you edit, though, but you should edit your story, too. Don't be so attached to things that happened in your life where you can't pick and choose what you're telling. Because that's the other temptation, I think, when you're writing autobio, is like, everything's really important to you that happened to you, but it's not necessarily going to be important for a reader. So have an editor, have somebody who's honest with you, you know, have a story arc. And then, again, almost like treat it like a documentary about yourself as a flawed person. Is that helpful? Oh, and talk to people around you. Make sure they're on board. Because people get uncomfortable when you write things that they may not have wanted people to know about themselves, you know? So make sure you have that cleared, too. Because there will be blowback. There will be blowback. All right, guys. I am going to call it. I will be back. I do like Joe Matt's stuff. Jake said that wasn't perhaps Joe Matt. Marsh said, yeah, that's been my hesitation to some degree, that brutal honesty seems tough. When you've done that, what was it? Was it tough to hear people's reactions to it? I'd say the hardest part of Two Stories wasn't so much the reactions to it, it was pitching it. It's an uncomfortable book to sell. Does that make sense? It was always like awkward to talk about. It still is, you know, where it's like, it's just awkward to talk about because it was really awkward to write. But you just kind of have to, I don't know. I think you got to kind of get comfortable with that. Whatever you're sharing, make sure you want to share. All right, guys. Marsh, I'll talk more about that because I know you're interested in it. I'll try to get more deeply into that maybe on the next live stream. I'll probably be live streaming in another 30 minutes. So I'll see you guys around then. I'm just going to go eat and then also upload this so my publisher can take a look at the next rough. And but I will be back on live streaming and working on comics. Again, make sure you guys hit the bell so you get notifications. If you miss me in the meantime, you can check out No Saboteurs. The sun eventually sets on everything. Or my own solo albums. They're all linked in the show notes. You can support by buying Jacob's Apartment or Two Stories, my 2 graphic novels. I appreciate you guys. I will see you guys on the next live stream. And it's always fun to have you guys show up. And again, it'll be a live streaming summer. So keep in touch because I will be right back in probably about 30 minutes to an hour. All right. Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to crumble!
I'm Joshua Kemble, and welcome to Joshua Kemble's Livestream. I've been a freelance illustrator and graphic designer for over 20 years. I was an art director for 9 years. And when I'm not art directing and working on illustrations and graphic designs, I'm working on comic books and graphic novels, and that's usually what I do during my streams. And while conversations can go all over the place on this stream, from spicy and entertaining to goofy and silly, one thing stays consistent throughout every stream. I'll always be working on art. So pull up a chair, get your art supplies out, and get ready for an entertaining show that'll keep you company while you work on your own personal art projects. This is Joshua Kemble's Art Stream.